The 3 episodes supposedly celebrating the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who have come out, and the first of them was such utter garbage that it annoyed me enough to make this video. This is mostly about the first episode, The Star Beast, mainly because there's not a whole lot to say about the other 2. The episode starts off with an embarrassing recap segment, where David Tennant reads off some unconvincing dialogue, and stands awkwardly in front of a green screen, with a generic space background to it. This looks like the kind of thing I'd expect from a very low-budget educational show or game, explaining space to children. Like, I could just imagine a multiple-choice question appearing next to David here in plain text. Catherine Tate joins in the recap from her kitchen, just kinda sitting there, I guess. Did they catch her during breakfast? The recap explains how Donna Noble's story ended back in Season 4 of the show, and it does it no justice. In fact, it very much comes across as the kind of recap you might see in a YouTube video much like this one, as opposed to a full-on official episode of the show. Donna was the Doctor's companion. She had to take the energy of a Time Lord into herself to save the universe, but that much power is too much for a human, so he had to erase her memories of him and everything they experienced to save her life, and they can never see each other again. I can't say I'm doing this much justice either, but I at least have the excuse of making a YouTube video criticizing a bad episode of television, and they certainly don't get any passes here, where they're undoing and ruining such a great and bittersweet ending to a story arc and character in this show. There's the implication that something is happening, as Donna's dreams of her experiences are getting stronger, and the Doctor has an old face back, something that's unusual as this is the first time this has happened to him. Yes, he's had other people's faces, but this isn't just the same face with a different personality, this is straight up just the 10th Doctor again. This is important because while the core traits of the Doctor always remains the same, well, almost always, his overall personality, disposition, attitude, and the way he carries himself changes with each iteration, so for a whole previous incarnation to come back seems to be unusual, and if nothing else, the Doctor himself was weirded out by it. We then get the new intro, which is one of the few things I liked about this episode, with a classic Doctor Who logo, which is neat. The new version of the main theme is great too. The Doctor then lands the TARDIS in modern-day London, and the Doctor goes wandering about, and sees someone struggling with a bunch of boxes and goes to help. He pulls some boxes off the stack, and who does he see but Donna Noble? And he immediately puts the box back, blocking out her face. Honestly, an amusing and in-character moment, one of the few of this kind in the entire episode. The Doctor has to get out of here pronto, because every second she looks at him, he risks her remembering who he is, and she will die as a result. This is crucial. Now the chances of landing in London and randomly stumbling into Donna is pretty insane. This could possibly be excused if there's some cosmic force drawing the two of them together, but no such thing is explained in this episode. I suppose it's hinted at in the recap segment, but that's about all we get for now. Donna gets annoyed with him as he's walking away, so he returns and helps her anyways. A few seconds probably won't make that much of a difference, it's fine. Donna then starts calling for Rose, shocking the Doctor, as Rose is the name of a previous companion of his. Donna's daughter then shows up, and after a quick back and forth, Rose and the Doctor start to introduce themselves, but they're interrupted by a disturbance in the sky. The Doctor realizes it's a spaceship and...
It's a spaceship in trouble.
Mum, look, it's a spaceship! Yes.
I'm sorry, but this person cannot act for shit. It's also bizarre that she just goes along with it without a second thought. See, most times when the Doctor alludes to, or even outright mentions the idea of aliens and spaceships in the past or modern day, most characters have that initial shock and confusion, or disbelief and skepticism, when such things are mentioned, even in scenarios far more extreme and bizarre than this, especially considering just 5 seconds ago, Rose just said it was a plane crashing. While all this is happening, Donna completely misses it all because she's fiddling with the stack of boxes on the ground. The ship comes down and it gives off the impression of a crash, with a loud boom and fire in the distance. There's a few quips and the Doctor gets distracted by a man calling for Rose, again confusing the Doctor. Turns out it's the father of the Rose we just met, who is running off in the opposite direction for some reason that's unclear. Either he was here with his wife and daughter, or there was an insane coincidence that he just happened to stop in this same location and happened to see his daughter. Either way, he's a taxi driver, and the doctor needs to get to the crash site. Again, there's some back and forth, but we learn that Donna Noble gave away all her money from the lottery, aside from the house they bought, which we're told they can barely afford to keep running now. This obviously undoes the final gift the doctor gave to Donna. While she could no longer travel with him or even remember him, before his regeneration into the 11th Doctor, he made one last stop on her wedding day to give Wilfred a lottery ticket to pass along to Donna, so she'd be taken care of for life and never have to worry again. Now we learn that it was all given away to charity, essentially putting them back at square one. In fact, her husband Sean says they had bought a house with some of the money, but it's not even a standalone house, it's part of a townhouse complex. The happy ending we had been led to believe she had gotten is suddenly and at least partially undone. They kinda seem to live well enough, I guess, but Sean still has to work as a taxi driver to make ends meet, and they're apparently barely doing that. Anyways, they arrive at the steel factory and we get the BBC News perspective of the incident as a reporter is shoved into a van live on camera. Do I even need to explain why this is stupid and absurd? There's no way in hell government operatives would take a reporter on live broadcast and shove him into a van like this for a situation that is not yet out of control. There's no current known threat or danger, and nothing is actively happening aside from a fire in a factory. Throwing reporters in a van like this is an extremely bad look, and they would not do this on a live broadcast. What they do is take out the camera first, either by simply asking them to turn it off, or by forcefully shutting it down. Then they'd throw them into the van. I have to stress the fact that this is a live broadcast that potentially millions of people will see, especially anyone in the local area concerned about the huge explosion they just heard. Naturally, the doctor sneaks onto the scene, but he does it in a dumb location. Sure, there does tend to be a lot of luck involved in situations like this, where characters get by just in the nick of time or whatever, but it doesn't appear as though the doctor is even attempting to be stealthy at all. He's right in the open, in an area that is fairly well lit, and one look in the wrong direction will get him caught. There's people directly in front of him. He could walk literally 30 feet to the left, where it's both darker and there's no people actively moving around. Especially since there's a gate over there already to go through, especially once through the fence, he goes in that fucking direction anyways. Once inside the factory, the doctor sees the ship, which appears to have landed instead of crashed. We're also introduced to this absolutely farcical bullshit. The lady running the operation here is in a wheelchair. Okay, sure, someone who is disabled could still be a useful member of society and could still do things, that's great. This is a factory, and they tend to not be very wheelchair accessible. She should be at a desk at Unit HQ, or at absolute most, she should be like the operator in a van parked outside. She should not be on site for something like this. An alien ship landed, and you do not know what kind of potential risk it might pose. What if the creature inside wanted to brutally kill everything in sight? I can easily tell you who one of the first victims would be. There's a bunch of really dumb moments like this that I'm just gonna round up and talk about together at the end of this video. Anyways, she determines that the ship landed. It didn't crash. Which, I mean, no fucking shit, Sherlock, did you figure that out all by yourself? Back in town, Donna and Rose are walking home, and I guess that means Sean really was just there by complete coincidence earlier. How about that? There's also some boys who are yelling the name Jason at Rose for some undetermined reason. It's fine, I'm sure it won't ever come up again. Inside the house, Donna sees her mother cooking dinner, and we get more references to how they're struggling. Donna referring to this as her not needing her own personal food bank, the fact that Donna had lost her job, and Sylvia mentioning that Donna should have kept some of her money. Again, I take issue with this for taking away a rather big part of Donna's happy ending, which in itself would be fine if the payoff were good, but it's not. There is a good little moment here too that I really like, where Rose asks Sylvia if she saw the spaceship crash, to which Sylvia immediately gets worried and hurriedly dismisses it, then out of concern, asks if Donna saw it. Donna says she didn't, and Sylvia seems relieved. I'm glad to see they're taking this plot element seriously still, because it will be a core part of any Doctor Who story featuring Donna Noble after Journey's End. It would really be a shame if they screwed this up, but I mean, it's Russell T Davies. Surely he wouldn't ruin the tragic and bittersweet ending to Donna Noble's story, right? We also get this line from Donna that I like.
I would burn down the world for you, darling. Anyone has a go, I will be there, and I will descend.
This is pretty much the exact kind of behavior I'd expect from Donna Noble for her child, and it makes complete sense for her character. After a short conversation about Rose, Donna brings up the spaceship again, and mentions how Wilf used to talk about flying saucers all the time. This worries Sylvia, who immediately tries to change the subject. Again, good handling of trying to keep Donna from remembering. This goes completely over Donna's head, however, as she mentions that Wilf just suddenly stopped. He talked about UFOs and little green men, then never mentioned them again. Sylvia again naturally looking worried here. This is good. This woman should be concerned at all times about Donna potentially remembering anything.
Because if she remembers, just for a second, she'll burn up. You can never tell her. You can't mention me or any of it for the rest of her life.
Donna mentions how there's a gap in her memory, and how she feels like there's something missing, that while she's grateful and should be happy for all she has, sometimes she looks to her side expecting something to be there, and she's kept up at night thinking about what she's missing. Again, at the risk of being repetitive, this is all good. I'm pointing this out now, because it will be very relevant in a bit. Outside, a friend of Rose comes along to tell her about the alien's escape pod, which they go to see, and she's told that there's an alien on the loose. She runs home to get her phone, and immediately encounters the alien, a creature called the Meep, who explains that he had hurt his hand, and there are other creatures from the sky coming to hunt him down. We then get a shot of her friend encountering these tall, terrifying red-eyed creatures that abstain from vaporizing the child because they're only here for the Meep. Back at the steel factory, and the Doctor summons a view screen with the sonic screwdriver. Okay, so that's a new one. I'll refrain from commenting on this right now and save it for a little bit later down the line. Wheels rolls up on the Doctor and introduces herself, gives him some information he asks for, and she asks why he's hiding, as they're supposed to be on the same side. He explains that things are a bit weird right now, due to regenerating into an old face. Wheels asks him why, and he says that's what he's wondering, and he just dumps all this information on this complete fucking rando that he doesn't know, that Donna was his best friend. She took the mind of a Time Lord into herself, and her memories of him had to be erased. If she remembers, she will die. And he further elaborates that he gets his face back, the TARDIS lands right next to her, he turns around and there's her husband, and a spaceship crashes right in front of her.
It's like she's drawing us in.
Remember that Wheels has no connection to the Doctor before this point. This is his first time ever talking to her. She's not a friend he knows, she's not someone he's worked with, he's probably never even seen her in a crowd, and yet he's just dumping all the shit on her because... I don't know. It's not even for the sake of convenient yet clunky exposition, because we just got a recap of this at the start of the episode. Part of the problem with this is the fact that the Doctor doesn't often talk about very personal stuff like this, unless it's essentially forced from him due to a dire situation, or unless it's someone he knows and trusts. Remember, he barely talked about Gallifrey to the original Rose, if at all, and finally opened up about it to Martha Jones. That's why that was such a special moment. He doesn't tend to burden complete randos with deeply personal shit like that for no reason. If we really need to get this information again, he should have either been talking to someone he knows and is comfortable with telling this, or we should have seen him sitting there quietly contemplating, while seeing quick flashbacks of key moments to show the audience what he's thinking. Dumping all of this on Wheels would be like walking up to a random guy at a bus stop and telling him that a close family member of yours is dying of cancer. It just doesn't fit. The conversation essentially ends with him repeating that she can't remember, and stating that he won't be the one to kill her.
But she can't remember. I won't be the one who kills her.
I'm sure this is setting up for an amazing payoff that won't ruin everything. A soldier from UNIT tells Wheels they found the escape pod, so the Doctor hitches a ride with UNIT. Shortly after, another soldier tells her they found a signal inside the ship. They get back inside, and he realizes, oh right, Wheels can't go up the stairs, fucking derp, and she says it's fine, Just get in there and investigate. See, this is why your lead person on site shouldn't be in a wheelchair. I'm sorry, but it's just a fact of life that when you're crippled like this, there are certain tasks you cannot do, including tasks vital to a military operation dealing with alien life. There's just no good reason for Wheels to be here. Except, you know, because the plot needed her to be crippled, so she couldn't climb the stairs, so she wouldn't get immediately mind-controlled like every single person who went up there. Back to Rose, she gets some medical supplies to help the Meep with its injured hand. Again, there's a bit of a back and forth, and Donna enters the shed to complain at Rose for not taking the garbage bin out. The Meep hides in plain sight, and Rose tries to get Donna to leave, but she starts obsessing over it, thinking it's a toy that Rose made, until she sees it blink and, well...
What the hell?
Alright, another decent Donna moment. It made me smile slightly. Unit arrives on a local street with the doctor having stowed away in the back. The doctor realizes he's near Donna's home, which he goes to for some reason. Meanwhile, Donna is freaking out about the Meep, as Sylvia desperately tries to get Donna to ignore it, and even tells her that it's not real. At that exact moment, the doctor begins banging on the front door, demanding to be let in. Why doesn't he just use the sonic screwdriver? It would take him like 5 seconds to get through that door. Again, great reaction. In fact, this is pretty much exactly how she should react to seeing him again, as him being here is actively endangering Donna. The doctor sees the Meep through the mail slot and uses the sonic screwdriver to get in anyways, so banging on the door was pointless. For some reason, the Meep is clinging to Donna's leg, and Sylvia goes back to desperately trying to get Donna to ignore it, and she also rightfully slaps the doctor. Everything gets chaotic, and Sean shows up, which I guess just stops everything for a comedic moment. I don't mind it, I guess. This is also pretty much the end of anything good this episode had to offer. This next scene is painful, because it seems like the doctor stops taking Donna's condition seriously. They make a really bad joke about Wilfred being dead, and... well, I'll get to that other thing. First up, Sylvia is still concerned about Donna, and it's shocking that she still is, and the doctor isn't, considering this...
But she can't remember. I won't be the one who kills her.
...was just a few short minutes ago. The doctor is just sitting there in front of Donna, asking about her money, raising questions that might get her thinking, even mentioning that he has 2 hearts, and there's not an ounce of concern that Donna will remember. As for Wilf, he asks about him, and Donna simply says,
He's not with us anymore.
Right.
to which the doctor naturally assumes that Wilf passed away. David Tennant put some good acting to waste here, because it does feel like the doctor really cares about Wilf, and it's all for the sake of a dumb and tasteless joke. Donna says that Wilf is in a care home now, and Sylvia calls him an idiot.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
He's not dead, you idiot.
Already, this feels out of place. It feels like a bad Marvel joke transplanted into the series. Worse yet, this comes across as really bad taste, as the actor who plays Wilfred Mott, Bernard Cribbins, has passed away after the filming of these specials. While the joke was written and recorded before his passing, it seems exceptionally tasteless to leave it in when we're referring to the death of a character whose actor died in real life. The setup to this joke is just pathetic too. Who sadly states, "He's not with us anymore," and gives no other context when referring to someone who is alive and just doesn't live with you anymore. The only natural conclusion is that he's fucking dead. After that, there's that other thing. It's quite embarrassing. I'll save that for a little later though. Speaking of embarrassing, however, the mind-controlled unit soldiers show up at the same time as the alien bugmen who are hunting the Meep, and there's so much bullshit here I don't even know where to begin. First of all, much of this looks as though it's a super low budget show, where the bugmen are just kind of standing there awkwardly, or I guess flying there awkwardly in place while shooting. I get that this show and the whole network is publicly funded by the Gestapo, who harass people for their TV license fees.
Sorry, what are you doing?
From High Court Enforcement.
Okay, and what do you want?
So obviously you owe £1,328.56p,
Yeah,
right? Because obviously unpaid TV licence.
okay.
Obviously, I've come around here to collect the payment in full, or we remove goods. Up to the value of the 1,300.
Okay, so why are you coming to the side of my house, opening my window?
Because if there's an open window, we're allowed to gain access to the property, sir.
So you're saying that you legally can climb through my window?
That's exactly what I'm saying, yeah.
But some of these shots just look pathetic. The soldiers and Bugman shoot at each other to apparently no effect. The Doctor uses a sonic screwdriver to create 2 force fields, and what the fuck, man? So the sonic screwdriver is literally just a magic wand now. I didn't know we were watching Harry fucking Potter. The sonic screwdriver is a multi-tool of sorts, a Swiss Army knife that the Doctor has used for a very long time, but even it has limitations. It's mostly used for opening and closing doors, gaining access to various computer terminals and electronics, and even doing some scans, and strengthening or weakening various materials. But for it to conjure view screens and fucking force fields out of thin air is completely farcical. This gets into the whole issue of why sometimes introducing new powers is dangerous, because it can reflect poorly on everything that came before it, and it can establish powers that you might never have a reason to not use. A widely cited example is the hyperspace kamikaze in The Last Jedi, where flying a ship into another ship while going into hyperspace has the ability to do an immense amount of damage, nearly shearing a wing off the Supremacy and crippling several Star Destroyers. If this is possible in this universe, and given the reaction of the officers on deck, they realized what she was doing, this means that this absurdly powerful tactic was just never used before for apparently no reason whatsoever, and it now must be accounted for going forwards.
We need to put some holdo maneuvers, do some real damage.
Come on, that move is 1 in a million.
Or you can retcon it, I suppose. Or maybe not. Similarly, since I just mentioned Harry Potter, the big reveal at the end of the 3rd book centers around the fact that Sirius Black, who was imprisoned for killing several people and betraying the Potter family to Voldemort, was actually innocent the whole time. This is fine, except for the fact that the very next book introduces Virida Serum, which compels the subject who drank it to tell the truth against their own best interest. Hey, I recognize that guy! There's also the ability to straight up take someone's memories out of one's mind to allow others to experience them firsthand, which is also first mentioned in the Goblet of Fire. With that in mind, why was neither option attempted on Sirius Black to find out the truth? When introducing new powers into an ongoing franchise, care has to be taken, or else it could have a knock-on effect which retroactively creates issues like this in previous installments. With that in mind, the Doctor having a convenient computer terminal and force field generator at pretty much a moment's notice is an insane new power to have, considering there's been plenty of times where such things would have been extremely useful in dire situations. How many times has the Doctor, his companions, and nearby civilians or even military personnel been shot at that could have been prevented with these force fields? Honestly, too many to count. Also, as to the Doctor being stupid about Donna's condition, he just hands her the sonic screwdriver. Like, motherfucker, are you actively trying to kill her now? Just grab onto her and use her as a human shield from the bullets at this point. At least she'll have a better chance of survival. Moving on, we just saw the Bugmen blow up the back door of the house. Why are they bothering to shoot through like this when they could just come through the walls? This is wood and drywall, not 10 inches of solid steel. Once he pushes both barriers into the hallway, he gets everyone to go upstairs. This is just embarrassing. What the hell are you doing, Russell? Up in the attic, the Doctor stops and explains what the sonic screwdriver is. 2 points. First, you're in the middle of escaping what appears to be 2 extremely hostile forces. Get a move on. Secondly, there's a person in your group who will instantly die if she remembers who you are. You know this.
Because if she remembers, just for a second, she'll burn up. You can never tell her. You can't mention me or any of it for the rest of her life.
You claim to be desperately worried about this.
But she can't remember. I won't be the one who kills her.
The sonic screwdriver is something that would only ever be associated with you from her point of view. How fucking stupid are you? This is not the Doctor. Him being a quirky weirdo will always be outweighed by his responsibilities and things he considers to be dire and important. The Doctor can be silly and goofy sometimes, when he could get away with it, but he would never do so if he thought it would cost someone their life, especially a dear friend like Donna. There's even a moment where after creating a hole in the wall to escape through, Donna is impressed, and the doctor is just kinda taking in the praise, while Sylvia is still apparently the only one who cares that this could kill Donna at literally any moment. If she remembers, she's dead. I cannot stress this enough. He knows this. He was lamenting that he does not want to be the one to kill her, and now he's dropped all pretense of even trying to protect her. I can't express how exceptionally frustrating this is. Every second spent with him, on a base level, is a chance for her to remember, let alone seeing aliens and sonic screwdrivers and hearing mentions of having 2 hearts and everything. As they escape through the attic, there's a firefight in the street between the bugmen and the mind-controlled unit soldiers, and regular unit soldiers. They all sneak behind battle lines to Sean's car, and while doing so, the doctor checks the pulse on a downed mind-controlled unit soldier, and the doctor is surprised, which gets the attention of the bugmen who fire at the car to no effect. They escape and park in an underground parking lot. The doctor starts playing judge over a little court session, summoning in the bugmen and telling them to stand down, to which they agree. Donna is the only one besides the doctor and the Meep to get out of the car, and she's watching this as he continues to not even attempt to hide any of this from her, including important phrases she's heard with him previously, such as the Shadow Proclamation. He also gets her to inspect the car for burns, of which there are none. My dude, just fucking dome her already and be done with it. It's clear you don't care. There's a back and forth in the little court session where the bugmen explain that the Meeps were a peaceful race, until psychedelic rays from their sun mutated the whole race into brutal killing machines. The Meep gives up the act and kills them immediately. Pretty obvious twist, but whatever. The doctor bullshits his way out of getting killed, and it's fine. Better to be captured than dead. The doctor wakes up in the back of the truck, and Donna is immediately questioning who he is, and points out that it seems as though Sylvia knows him. She's starting to piece everything together. Donna laments giving away all the money. The doctor asks why, and Donna says there's places and people out there that were unsafe and needed it, throwing in, that's the sort of thing he would do, which obviously should be worrying to Sylvia and the doctor. Back at the steel factory, we learn why the ship landed here. It's for repairs. The doctor explains that the ship's engine, a dagger drive, gets its energy from stabbing down. It would consume 5 square miles of London to take off. So first of all, what the fuck? That makes no sense. It stabs down, therefore 5 square miles are consumed and destroyed? What? Who the fuck would design this? Secondly...
But that's 9 million people.
That's 9 million people. Could you not have hired someone a bit better for this? This person has the approximate emotional output of a brain-dead turnip. The Meep orders the ship to be started, and the prisoners taken aboard. Then we get this embarrassing scene.
Evening, boys.
You've got weapons in your wheelchair.
We all have.
I can't stress just how stupid this is. It'd be exceptionally difficult to aim darts out of a wheelchair's leg, let alone hit 2 different targets perfectly like that. Why did we need wheelchair darts? Instead of just giving her a fucking gun? Also, how did Wheels hide here this whole time with no one finding her? Anyways, she directs Donna's family to a way to escape the plant. She tells the doctor that the area he needs to go can't be accessed from here. He asks, what do we do then? And she fires a rocket out of her wheelchair to blow a hole in the wall for him. Again, this is just pure unfiltered stupidity. There's no reason for a rocket launcher to be built into a wheelchair in any serious piece of media. This is something that should only exist as a joke within a wacky cartoon world. This is the kind of thing I'd expect to see in a Spaceballs sequel, or a parody of Star Trek or something, not a show that is generally more serious like Doctor Who. Also, rockets have backblast. This should spin her around or knock her backwards or something. Anything. Donna stares after the doctor as he runs off, and her husband has to call for her to snap her out of it. They get to the door, Donna hugs Rose, then shuts the door on them and locks it from her side, while they all just kinda stand there and do nothing to stop her. She says that if the doctor can't save the city, they'll all die, and she runs off to help him. Sylvia notices that she said the doctor. As the Meep is starting the ship, the doctor is trying to stop it by running all over the place to hit buttons, and the Meep orders the room to be bisected. There's just a big glass panel that slides down and separates the room into two, conveniently with the doctor on one side and Donna on the other. Ringing any bells? This is so absurdly fucking contrived and I hate it. Donna wants to help. He says she can't, but then tells her which switches and buttons to hit. The Meep activates the dagger drive and this happens. Oh, so we're just fucked, I guess. Fiery chasms open all across London. There should already be untold death and destruction from this alone. This is catastrophic. The doctor essentially gives up, as there's only one thing he can do, but he doesn't want to do it. He explains to Donna that he can stop the ship with her and save the city, but he tells her she'll die. She says she's willing to sacrifice herself to save everyone.
Why does it have to be this?
Wait, now you care? Because you just spent the past literal 20 minutes of screen time not giving a shit about doing things that may make her remember you. Oftentimes in bad pieces of modern media, certain moments, payoffs, or character traits are poached from earlier entries in the series in a really cheap way to try and connect the audience to this new thing, and it almost never works. This case feels particularly dirty, however, as it's a writer poaching from his own work that is far superior to this. It would be like if George Lucas made a new Star Wars movie that outright ripped Vader's redemption at the end and applied it to a different character that hasn't earned such a payoff. We've seen this exact scenario play out before, and it was a tragic moment. It was the 10th Doctor's final sacrifice to save an old man.
Oh really, just leave me. I'm an old man, Doctor. I've had my time.
Well, exactly, look at you. Not remotely important. But me? I could do so much more! So much more! But this is what I get. My reward. But it's not that!
No, please don't. Please don't, please!
Wilfred, it's my honor.
Now here we are, with the same doctor, with the granddaughter of that man he saved, in an extremely similar situation, except the doctor cannot sacrifice himself here, he must sacrifice her, and this is insanely contrived. I feel like this is the goddamn definition of a monkey's paw wish. I wish Russell T Davies and David Tennant come back to Doctor Who. Wish granted, and it's this clownish parody where the Doctor is a pathetic idiot, one of the best and most bittersweet moments from the series is outright destroyed, and... well, we'll get to that other thing. The Doctor starts rattling off seemingly random words, which I guess are code words to unlock her mind, and the energy flows back into her. Also, London is fucking burning. It's over. There's no magically undoing this. The city is completely fucked. Donna is initially pissed that she gave away all her money, because the power of the Doctor's mind that was within her is what made her want to help people so much and influence that decision. After that, they both get to work on shutting down the ship, and they're successful.
Ignition reverse. Ignition reverse.
No. I'm sorry, you can't do that. This is just literal magic at this point. This show has done some pretty bullshit things in the past to undo a lot of damage to Earth to pretty much keep it at a neutral state, as if aliens never visited. But those are oftentimes justified by other elements in the story, such as the Paradox Machine. Here, this ship did immense damage to the surrounding area. Massive chasms of fire, roads and potentially buildings destroyed, power going out, meaning severed power lines and so forth. And yet all that is just magically undone because they stopped the ship? Nah, go fuck yourself. The Meep orders the soldiers to kill them, and Donna collapses, giving her final words to the Doctor as she dies. I hate this, because undoing the Dr. Donna should be a massive thing, reserved only for the biggest of moments. This sacrifice, her death, should it ever be portrayed on screen, shouldn't be for a lame one-off villain, but only for the greatest of threats, especially since the event that caused this was part of one of the single biggest threats the universe had ever faced. To kill her off like this is just a waste. Oh wait, no, she's alive. So this is even worse than I thought, but I'll get to that in a moment. Also, the soldiers enter the room and say out loud, "We have orders to kill you," rather than just doing it.
We have orders to kill you.
The day is saved as Rose flips some switches and disables the mind control on the soldiers. It's a good thing they stopped to declare that they were ordered to kill, rather than just taking their shot immediately. The Doctor realizes that the energy of the meta-crisis was too much for one person, and some of it was passed down to Donna's child, and we get a sequence of events showing how a bunch of things got passed down. The shed was her TARDIS, the toys she made were the creatures Donna had seen. Then we get a bit of nonsense I'll go over in just a bit with everything else I've been saving. The Meep is captured and sent to jail for 10,000 years. He vows he'll escape and get his revenge, and he says he's going to tell the boss about the Doctor, because a creature with two hearts is so rare. There's another bit here, but I think this is the perfect place to talk about the thing I've been holding off on for this entire episode. Now normally, I don't like to get political on this channel. I only deal with this sort of thing when I absolutely have to. And this is a case where I absolutely have to because it permeates this episode so fucking badly. Now there are a bunch of ways you could refer to this, whether it's the message, or intersectionality, or woke. The point is that there's a certain kind of political messaging here that ultimately does no one any favors, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on. The very people pushing this kind of messaging would have you believe that they're standing up for the little guy, or those who can't stand up for themselves. But ultimately this kind of writing is condescending and patronizing to the exact people they're trying to pander to in the first place, and the return of Russell T Davies to Doctor Who has provided possibly the best example as to why this kind of writing is terrible and should be rejected. There's a recent short featuring Davros, the creator of the Daleks. He's one of Doctor Who's most notorious villains, and his unique design has gone relatively unchanged for nearly 50 years, aside from some updates to make him look more real and less like a rubber mask. But now, he's suddenly been turned into generic SS man because we can't portray evil in a wheelchair.
We had long conversations about bringing Davros back because he's a fantastic character. Time and society and culture and taste has moved on, and there's a problem with the Davros of old in that he's a wheelchair user who is evil. And I had problems with that, and a lot of us on the production team had the problems with that, of associating disability with evil. And trust me, there's a very long tradition of this. I'm not blaming people in the past at all, but the world changes, and when the world changes, Doctor Who has to change as well.
This is pure insanity on multiple levels. First of all, it's a ridiculous assumption that because a villain is portrayed with certain traits, that means that people might see someone with the same traits in the real world and associate them with the villain, which is nothing short of absurd and delusional. Most people in the real world know that what they see on a screen isn't real, and most people similarly realize that people are different, and one wheelchair user isn't going to be a complete copy-paste of any other wheelchair user, or any other disability for that matter. This is nothing less than treating the general population as though they're toddlers, who aren't smart enough to differentiate fiction from reality, or to differentiate one person from another. If I see someone with a prosthetic limb, I don't assume they've killed all the younglings in the Jedi Temple. I assume they had some unfortunate accident, or other medical issue, or were just born without the limb. It's unfortunate that people have to deal with such situations, but it doesn't mean they're being put down or anything of the sort when a character with a similar trait shows up on screen. This also raises the issue of if it's wrong to portray villains as being disabled because of any potential negative association in the real world, then no group is safe to portray as a villain. If Davros existing like this can cause harm to disabled people, then by extension, any human or humanoid villain would similarly have that associated harm. It's the basic logic of properly adhering to the idea of portraying X kind of character can cause harm or negative association to X group in real life, therefore it means that you simply cannot have human villains. It's all or nothing, and anything else is disingenuous bullshit. This further raises the issue of limiting your pool of potential villain designs. If we pair this back to just special groups, such as the physically disabled, that means you can never have a villain who may have lost a limb for any reason, or is maybe born deformed. Well, if your villain lost an arm due to hubris, or the folly of his own plans, well, I guess you can't do that anymore. This is particularly strange with Davros, because he's not even a wheelchair user. He's half turned into a Dalek, hence the similar design of the life support system he's in. More on this point though, in any story involving any kind of mystery, you know if there's a wheelchair-bound character, they're gonna be the good guy by default. Villains should come in all shapes and sizes, because real people tend to come in all shapes and sizes, and similarly, there are good and bad people with any kind of group based on inherent traits they may have, such as race, sex, or how able-bodied they are. Everyone loves a good villain, so why can't disabled people have a kick-ass villain who wrecks people's shit and can pose a real threat? Oh, because Russell T Davies became an utter clown. If this isn't the absolute peak of patronizing, I'm not sure what is.
Evening, boys.
Wait, I take it back, that's even worse. Not only can disabled people not be villains, but they also have to kick ass, because I guess they've got an automatic win button. You have a wheelchair-bound person in a position of power. Okay, that's fine, that's understandable, that makes sense. After all, a skilled or talented person can come from anywhere. But then you send them into a job where their disability is actively restrictive to being able to properly carry out their tasks. That's bad. And she kicks ass without effort because magic wheelchair darts. That's really bad. And the main character is put into a position where he arbitrarily can't access somewhere he needs to go. So she fires her wheelchair rocket into a wall to instantly solve the problem that was just introduced 2 seconds ago. That is really fucking bad. This is the exact kind of thing people take issue with when they complain about woke writing. It's not the existence of a disabled person, or a person from any other group, it's these characters being treated as though they're special and better than everyone else for no particular reason. She can't be skilled in her own right, making use of equipment that is logical for someone like her to have. You know, like a fucking gun. But her disability itself has to become a ridiculous superpower and turns the whole thing into a farce. If she had a dart gun that did the same exact thing as her wheelchair darts, this wouldn't be an issue because it would have relied on her actual skill and ability to use the weapon, as opposed to a magic win button she didn't even have to aim. If she had planted some C4 on the wall to blow it open, this wouldn't have been an issue. She'd come across as intelligent, skilled, and resourceful, as opposed to ridiculous and cartoonish. What was a chance to develop a potentially interesting new character with depth has instead become a shallow joke of a character whose only notable trait is that she's in a wheelchair, and doesn't that just kick ass? No. No, it doesn't. I've slowly been watching through classic Doctor Who. I'm about halfway through the first Doctor's era, and there's a serial in there called The Dalek Invasion of Earth. In this 6-episode story, Earth is under attack by the Daleks in the future. There's a resistance group led by a man named Dortmund, who is a wheelchair-bound scientist. He doesn't have any stupid magic wheelchair or anything of the sort, just his skills as a scientist and as a leader of the group. He even risks his life to test a bomb that he made to stop the Daleks. This is a far better portrayal of a disabled character in the 1960s than what we got in the present day in 2023, because it treated him as though he's a real person with real limitations, as opposed to someone whose limitations are largely treated as though they're superficial, and the only time she's actually hindered by them, it turns out to save her ass from getting mind-controlled. Then we get Rose, a character whose only purpose seems to be to push the message. Even the BBC's review of its own show says that this episode is more of a delivery vehicle for the message than a means of entertainment. Similarly to Wheels, there's no actual issue with a transgender character being on screen, but they could have made her an interesting character. Hell, they could have made her a character. But her only character trait seems to be the fact that she's transgender, and we're constantly told by all the characters how beautiful she is. Once again, this comes across as patronizing and pandering. The problem is that it feels as though she's largely here to check a box and not much else. That they were mandated or decided that they needed a transgender character in the show, so that's the only aspect to the character as a whole. Prior to the big moment at the end, the only thing of note she does is take the Meep home, and we're repeatedly told how great she is, as opposed to having actual character traits that makes her feel like a real person. This is why diversity quotas are terrible, because checking boxes becomes more important than good writing. And no, that's not saying diversity is bad. Most people don't actually care if an actor on screen is black or white, male or female, straight, gay, transgender, or disabled, or whatever else. Most people care about the entertainment media they engage with being, well, entertaining. And beyond that, people typically care about said entertainment at least being decently well written and consistent. But rather than getting an entertaining episode of a beloved show, with the return of one of the most popular doctors, with a very well-liked companion, we get an episode of television that baits us in with nostalgia, with characters we like, and then completely destroys them, and one of the most bittersweet and tragic moments of the revived series, all for the sake of beating you over the head with modern politics every few minutes. They even outright stop the story to have a moment where the Doctor is questioned for assuming the Meep's pronouns.
I promise I can help him get home and then you'll never see me again.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
He then apologizes and asks the Meep for its pronouns.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
This has nothing to do with the actual story that's going on. It's just there to push the idea of chosen pronouns, which is something that less than 1% of the population actually engage with. The show even slips in a mention of non-binary in a really forced way, which I don't even think works for what they're trying to do?
Binary. Non-binary.
Now, I'm not familiar with all this transgender terminology and stuff, and I had to do a bit of research to try and figure out what this even means. But it's my impression, based on what I looked up, that people who identify as non-binary identify as neither male nor female, but this entire episode has treated Rose as if she identifies as female. So as I understand it, calling her non-binary here doesn't even make sense. I don't know, I could be wrong, but that's my understanding of it. This is also treated as though it's special for some reason, and I genuinely do not understand why.
We're binary.
She's not, because the Doctor's
Male
and female.
And neither. And more.
Like, what the fuck does that even mean? It's very unclear how non-binary is supposed to be interacting with the meta-crisis in a way that means anything. Again, had Rose just been a normal character who happened to be transgender, there'd be no problem. But the way they wrote it seems like that's the only aspect to her that matters at all. Well, it's not exactly the same. Remember that Jack Harkness wanted to fuck everything with a pulse, and he was a fan-favorite character who even got his own spin-off show, because him being bisexual and flirting with everyone wasn't his only character trait. He still felt like a real person with depth and nuance, as opposed to someone who is there purely for the sake of reminding you that gay people exist. Then we get this cringe fest.
Yes, we know.
We know everything.
And you know nothing. It's a shame you're not a woman anymore. Because she'd have understood.
We've got all that power, but there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
So after the Meep is taken away, the Doctor acknowledges that he still needs to fix the meta-crisis that's going on with Donna, and now Rose. How is he going to do this? I have no clue, since the only solution before was to lock her memories of him away. But that doesn't matter anyways, because they know everything. The Doctor knows nothing, and all they have to do is let go. Something a male-presenting Time Lord wouldn't understand. What this essentially means is that being a woman is now a superpower too. Women have the ability to let go of power, while men don't, and they're saying this to the Doctor, the man who has sacrificed time and time and time again to save people, to save entire worlds, to save the universe. This is the single most disrespectful thing you could ever possibly say to the Doctor, especially this Doctor, the man who gave up his life to save an old man. Also, from what I understand, this also gets the whole male-presenting thing wrong as well. Again, I had to look up what the fuck this even means, but from what I found, and from what I understand about it, this essentially means that anyone who wants to be the opposite sex, but have not taken steps to transition, would be presenting as their biological sex, but would still be considered transgender. For example, a biological man who wants to be female, but has not started the transitioning process, would be male-presenting. What this essentially means is that while the show is trying to pander to these groups, they didn't even do the bare minimum of research necessary to understand the very message they were trying to push for this entire episode. If that's not the very peak of woke activism, I'm not sure what is. These people don't even care enough about the message they're trying to push to even do the research. A quick Google search apparently answered the questions I had, but they're pushing this messaging anyways, because they want to look like a good ally or whatever. In doing so, they not only pissed off people just trying to enjoy an episode of a beloved television show, but they're making the movement they're trying to support look worse by forcing this messaging into the show so poorly, made worse by not even understanding the buzzwords they're using. After they say the line, they let go of the power, while Wheels looks on with a smug look on her face. God, I hope someone breaks her legs. Oh, right. Anyways, that's pretty much the episode. There's a bit at the end where we get to see the new TARDIS, which has a look reminiscent of the original. It looks decent. I like it. Donna spills some coffee on the console and the TARDIS takes off, leading to the next episode. Overall, the episode as it stands is really bad. The absolute worst parts are the Doctor not caring about Donna remembering, because from his understanding, she will die. As well as everything to do with the message, because the writers have got the subtlety of a nuke. The only returning character that felt in character for the entire episode was Sylvia. She was genuinely concerned for Donna's life the entire time, while the Doctor claimed to care, then did nothing to actually protect Donna, or prevent her from remembering. If you were to remove those aspects, it would be a pretty mid-episode, which normally would be fine, if this wasn't part of the 60th anniversary trilogy of episodes. A big anniversary special should be spectacular and great, and instead we get a mid-episode that, in the BBC's own words, is a delivery vehicle for the message. This also feels like they brought Tennant back to diminish and embarrass his Doctor. Here you have what is widely considered to be the most popular Doctor, making his return, only for him to be pathetic, idiotic, torn down and treated like shit. All done by the writer who not only built this version of the character in the first place, but revived the show from the fucking dead. Both Russell T Davies and David Tennant left the show on one of the highest possible notes you could have. The show is bigger than ever, the fandom was massive, and now they've come back and destroyed that legacy. It's disappointing and frustrating. I'd end it there, but since starting this script, the other two episodes have come out, and there's not enough to talk about them for a full video, so I'll just throw in a bit here for them. First up is Wild Blue Yonder. Overall, the episode is mid to kinda decent, I guess. I like the overall premise of the creatures they're dealing with. They're some kind of unknown shapeless beings who can mimic you based on your brain activity, and the most effective way for them to increase your brain activity is to scare you. So they spend a lot of the episode chasing, and generally being menacing towards Donna and the Doctor. I like the concept, but I wish they did more with it. Again though, this is the 60th anniversary special, and rather than getting something great, we get a fairly average episode, when we should be getting something spectacular. It's also worth noting that we get a race change Sir Isaac Newton, which is a problem for obvious reasons. Real historical figures, and just real people in general, should never be race swapped like this. Worse is that this bit is randomly thrown in at the start of the episode, and seems to serve no purpose for existing, aside from the unnecessary race change, and the repetitive and unfunny joke that they changed the entire timeline, so gravity is now Mavity or some crap. The absolute worst part, however, is when they doubled down on the Timeless Children. Just a recap for anyone who might be unaware, The Timeless Children is an exceptionally unpopular episode of Doctor Who, for the fact that it retcons and destroys the Doctor's entire backstory. Rather than just being another Time Lord, the Doctor is now a unique creature who the Time Lord stole the ability of regeneration from, and the Doctor has lived dozens, possibly hundreds of lives, before what had been previously known as the First Doctor, played by William Hartnell. This was obviously a big problem for many fans of the show, because it is the complete destruction of, at the time, nearly 60 years of lore and history. This is made worse by the fact that the Doctor isn't even a real person anymore. He's a creation of someone's imagination. In one of the more popular 10th Doctor episodes, The Family of Blood, we learn of a device that can essentially store the entire essence of who you are and give you false memories as well as rewrite your DNA to make you appear as though you're a different species. This is something the Doctor does to hide from the family of blood. In doing so, he creates a fictional human persona of John Smith, a teacher in a small English town in 1913, and he has no memory of his existence as the Doctor, aside from some strange dreams he has. It's revealed that the same process happened to the Timeless Child in order to turn them into the Doctor in the first place, meaning that everything we know of the Doctor for the entire run of the series is essentially someone's fictional character running about and living in the real world. This is despised by many fans for good reason, and many people want this retconned due to the immense damage it does to the character and the overall show, and this episode doubles down on it. Finally is the Giggle. This is the first return of the Celestial Toymaker in live action since his appearance during a first Doctor serial back in the 60s. And honestly, this episode feels like a complete waste of the character. In fact, there's a half-decent audio adventure called The Nightmare Fair, featuring the 6th Doctor encountering him again, that's far superior to this episode, and if you're a big enough Doctor Who fan, then I'd recommend checking it out. Anyways, the premise of this episode is largely a rehash of an episode we've seen before, where the Master plays a 4-beat tone, same as the drumming he hears in his head, to control people. The Toymaker's plan here is pretty much identical, but using a laugh in the first television recording, and through this he manages to convince everyone in the world that they're always right about everything, leading to chaos and disaster. This whole plot point is seemingly forgotten fairly quickly though, and it never feels as though it gets resolved. Yes, they blew up a satellite that launched and supposedly was the final piece in connecting everyone in the world, but it just kinda happens that it's forgotten about within literally a couple seconds. They say they did it, but we don't get any actual confirmation that anything has changed. The Toymaker comes across as a discount fusion of both the Master and Q from Star Trek. In fact, this episode outright rips off the episodes with the Master. We already had the Archangel Network plot point with the 7-tone Giggle, but we get him dancing around the room, singing along to some song, and just generally being chaotic, like the Master did twice.
Here come the drums!
Here come the drums, here come the drums. Child, my voodoo child. I can't decide whether you survive. Lock the doors and close the lights. Alright, oh, I could throw you in the lake. You should live or die. Oh, you proud.
What's that?
This just feels like they're trying way too hard to recapture the golden age of the revived series by just straight up copying parts of it. We also find out that the Toymaker beat the Master and turned him into a gold tooth? And when the Toymaker is defeated, the tooth is left behind and taken by some woman's hand, just like how his ring was taken when he died before. The Star Beast and the Giggle reek of a total lack of creativity, and anytime they even approach doing something interesting, it gets tossed aside and forgotten almost immediately. For example, we get a bit where the Toymaker taunts the Doctor about how he's lost some companions, such as Amy Pond's death, as well as what happened to some of the companions after her. But it doesn't lead to anything, it's just kind of there, like the rest of these episodes. This was a good chance for the Doctor to have to face the consequences of his actions, but it's forgotten about as soon as it's done. The best part about this episode is the fact it's given me a new reaction clip to use in videos.
Oh, well, that's alright then!
Also, I don't think I found any explanation for why the Doctor landed next to Donna in the Star Beast. There's the implication that something was drawing them together because the story isn't over.
I think the story hasn't ended yet.
But then that doesn't get wrapped up. The Doctor challenges the Toymaker to a game to determine who wins, and it's just cutting a deck of cards. I understand that the Doctor would choose something simple, because the Toymaker is a master of games, but it does come across as a bit boring. Having lost the game, the Doctor declares best of 3, giving him one more chance to beat the Toymaker, but the Toymaker did one game against the first Doctor, one against the 14th Doctor, so he thinks he should do the third game against a different Doctor as well, and shoots the laser at him, forcing regeneration. Now before I get to that, it's worth quickly going over the fact that these 3 episodes combined feel like a complete waste of both Donna Noble's character and David Tennant's return as the Doctor, and it doesn't at all feel like a 60th anniversary celebration of the show. I know I've touched on this a couple of times, but this really is important to emphasize. The anniversary specials tend to celebrate the show, with the return of past Doctors and companions. We had the 3 Doctors, the 5 Doctors, the Day of the Doctor, and here, for what is specifically the specials for the 60th anniversary, we get 3 subpar episodes, a bunch of political messaging, doubling down on the most damaging episode to the entire franchise, the ruining of the Dr. Donna storyline, by undoing it and making it so she could have just fixed it herself way back when, and we get David Tennant, and only David Tennant, in the role of the Doctor prior to this regeneration. I don't even think we get cameos from any previous Doctor in other roles. This doesn't feel like a celebration of the show. It feels like someone using a faulty defibrillator to kickstart someone's heart so they don't fucking die. It feels like the only reason Tennant was brought back was in an attempt to boost ratings after Jodie's terrible run, during which the show saw some of the lowest ratings it had ever reached in terms of audience numbers and user reviews. It's just another instance of key jangling, trying to trick people to come back, and this trilogy of crap only cements the fact that this show is unfortunately dead. Anyways, rather than regenerating, the Doctor bigenerates, which creates a new Doctor, so now Tennant's Doctor continues to exist, and we get the new Doctor. I feel like this is insanely world-breaking, but I'll get to that. Both Doctors challenge the Toymaker to a game of catch. They win, and get to request anything they want. Tennant demands that the Toymaker be banished forever, which, I guess, happens. Okay. We then get this whole spiel about how the Doctor never takes a break. The Doctor started, and has done a bunch of things since then, and just always kept going. Which we know for a fact isn't true, and that he needs to stop because he's essentially worked himself ragged. See, it's implied that what we see episode to episode isn't the only thing the Doctor does. They frequently imply that they've gone on other adventures in between episodes, because such stories are either not episode-worthy, or don't fit in with the rest of the show. We do get one example of this, however, in the episode Midnight. The Doctor and Donna had gone to a vacation resort with the intent of relaxing, and for the Doctor, sightseeing. The reason this is an adventure we see is because things went awry for the Doctor. There's other implications of such times both spoken out loud by the characters and through the natural result of the fact that no one would stick with him when their life is put in danger on a daily basis. Beyond that, from what I found looking it up online, the 4th Doctor was 759 years old, and had been traveling in the TARDIS for 523 years, and the 11th Doctor was around 900 years old. So already that's an excessive amount of time, and we're supposed to believe that during all that time, he's never ever taken a break, never relaxed, and never had a day where he didn't have to deal with some threat? I'm not sure I buy that. This is made far worse by the Doctor himself in this episode, saying he's a billion years old.
I'm a billion years old.
Is this meant to be taken literally? I sure as fuck hope not. Point is, regardless of whether the Doctor is 900 years old or a billion years old, this whole idea of him never stopping is complete bullshit. This is used to eject Tennant out of the show to allow Ncuti Gatwa to take over, but they could have done that without keeping them both. Instead, we get this awful saccharine ending, where Tennant's 14th Doctor just gets to stick around now, and lives with Donna's family, which I just don't believe he'd do. It's not in character for him to just stop. It's not like he's forced to give it up because Ncuti ran off with the TARDIS, because using his request for winning the game against the Toymaker, he's able to make a near-exact copy of the TARDIS, so Tennant still has his. I feel like the implications for this are fucking insane. The Doctor would get bored of mundane life on Earth. He wouldn't be able to resist the urge to travel because it's what he's always done, and more importantly, something the show has addressed multiple times, he always runs and keeps going because he can't bear to watch his companions grow old and die, while he continues on living, as he obviously has a much longer lifespan. It also raises the issue of any time Earth is in jeopardy, which is nearly constant in this show, he'd be on the scene to do something about it. So when Earth is under threat in any episode in the future, it's going to be fucking weird if Tennant doesn't show up to help or do anything about it, and I sincerely doubt Tennant is going to hang around and be on hand for any such episodes. Ultimately, these specials were pretty crap. They're underwhelming as far as anniversary specials go. They waste both talented actors and the return of beloved characters. The plots feel contrived and like absolute nonsense at times. The Doctor is idiotic and pathetic and treated like absolute garbage. And worst of all, this whole thing felt fucking pointless. We get the return of Tennant's Doctor, only for him to barely do anything, and get ejected out of the show, and the cause of the regeneration was lame too. The Dr. Donna was undone and ruined for no good reason, and the 14th Doctor, rather than having a tragic ending or a heroic ending, or sacrificing himself or anything of the sort, just kinda gets shot, but gets to stay around, but also has to leave forever, and this in turn also undoes the 10th Doctor's ending as well. See, that whole thing earlier about each version of the Doctor being pretty much a different person, that doesn't apply to Tennant's Doctors. For all intents and purposes, the 14th Doctor is just the 10th Doctor. It's not simply that he has the same face, but a different personality or accent or anything of the sort, it's just a bad photocopy of 10. Honestly, if this is the future of the show, it's sad to say it's doomed. I loved Doctor Who through much of the revival prior to the 50th anniversary, which is where I stopped watching, and I'm enjoying going through the classic series. There's definitely a lot to like with this show, and it's sad to see such a beloved and long-standing show get utterly destroyed like this. Can Doctor Who still be saved? Well, I think anything is possible when it comes to entertainment media like this. I just don't think it's likely. At least, not with this showrunner. It would require someone to come in with the freedom to do as they please and outright retcon the Timeless Children, and improve the writing quality overall. And even then, you won't get everyone back who used to be a fan. That's all I've got for now. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe. I do want to cover more Doctor Who stuff in the future, but I've got enough projects on the go as it is, so it will be a while.